Hey, what's going on? There's a lot of sound design tutorials out there that talk about like really, really complicated and intricate ways of making specific sounds. That's awesome. There's really nothing wrong with that at all. But I thought it'd be interesting if I made a video that goes more into detail about um, sound design using much more simple and workflow-oriented tools as opposed to process-oriented ones. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Right, so the vast majority of the techniques and tools that I'm talking about in this video are things that pretty much everyone knows how to use. Like, I mean, if you're watching this video, if you're on my channel, you probably know how to use the vast majority of the stuff that I'm talking about. There's really nothing like groundbreaking or new here. It's all about just the way that you're using them. So the first thing that I kind of want to talk about is really just the value of like basic shapes and basic subtractive engines, you know, because a lot of times you're like, oh, well, I'm going to take this like additive oscillator and then put it into this fucking modal resonator, or like, what if I have like a network of like waveguides and they're all feeding? No, just, subtractive engines, just like saw waves and triangle waves. It's so simple. And I feel like we don't really pay attention to it as much as we should be, because those kinds of sound sources are so important. So like, okay, let me play an example of what I have here. So there's a lot going on here, and obviously there's some more complicated stuff that kind of goes against the entire like main idea of the video. But I want to talk about this pad, these like pads here specifically. It's something like this. And these two specifically are sort of what I want to point out. So this pad here is just detuned sine waves with like no really decay or anything. Well, I guess there is a decay. No real release. It's just detuned sine waves. And this took me maybe 20 seconds to make. And then the other part of this pad is this bit here, which is also extremely simple. It's just a subtractive engine here. I'm using Glanta, which is, I don't know how to pronounce that actually. It's a and then that's going into just 4 parallel delays. It's extremely simple. And this as well took me maybe like 45 seconds to make. You just need to get the delays and change the delay times. And as long as you know what you're doing when you're going into it, you don't really need to do anything else. And I think I want to try to find another example of how basic shapes are useful as well. So I think this here maybe. Yeah, all right, this is a really great example. This isn't really a basic shape, but it's noise, and it's just raw, unfiltered white noise. I think is it unfiltered? Yeah, it's unfiltered. It's just raw, unfiltered white noise with an amplitude envelope on it. And like if I just play this bit here, it adds a whole lot to the texture and buildup and growth of that movement. It's just white noise. It's just raw white noise. And this took me probably took me 30 seconds to just add in the operators and draw in the automation for that. I've got like this Google Docs here with a bunch of notes in it. And I have written down in this Google Docs, if a sound takes like more than 5-ish minutes to make, then it's not really worth it to make it. And to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to open up a different project file. So give me a second. All right. So this is a very, very short, like 20-minute thing that I made at some point. I think I made it on stream actually, but it sounds like this. Really, I think I'm getting a notification. I should turn my phone on vibrate. Okay. And all the sounds in here are very, very simple. Like this is just a preset in Piano Tech. This is basic shapes like I was talking about before. Same thing with basic shapes there, with like just a saw with an envelope on it. That's also basic shapes, just a saw wave. And those are sine waves with a the decay on the envelope being animated a little bit. And all of these sounds individually maybe took less than a minute to make. And I could have made it much more complicated. Like for this thing, right? Like I probably could have taken like a noise impulse and fed that into a modal resonator and turned the it down to only a couple resonant modes, and then automated up the resonance as the thing continued. Maybe I could have done a little bit with the envelope on the noise as well, but I didn't do that. I mean, it would have been a more effective way to do it to get the sound that I wanted. It probably would have sounded better too. But I didn't do that because it's unnecessary and it would have taken like 10 minutes. And that would have interrupted the flow in the process for making this. And as for example, I guess would be this sound here, which is just like a default collision preset and just like a single note in it. And there's also the pianos here, which is just like all these sounds are just like literally default presets. You don't need really anything else other than that. None of these sounds are at all complicated at all, but they're, I think, in my opinion, I think they're extremely effective because of that lack of complexity. Because then you can just go through and make a thing in 20 minutes without having to worry about any complex sound design or anything. So I think right now I kind of want to list off a few specific techniques that I use personally to get like simpler sounds or to make sounds in a simple way that doesn't take up very much time, like I've been talking about. Here, let me go into my my list and look at that. So right, so Ableton drum synths. Ableton comes with a few stock like Max for Live drum synths. I think like DS Kick is one of them. It's just like a really simple kick synth. We can just use this to make kicks. You know, it's just all right there. I think it's a similar thing for DS hi-hat. This is a really amazing noise source and like impulse generator that you can use for a lot of things, and it's just right there with really simple and easy to use. Yeah, the drum synths are really, really great for getting really fast percussive noises because, I mean, that's exactly what they're made for. And of course, because of, you know, because it's Ableton, you can use them in so many different ways, and they're very, very versatile. Right. There's also pre-built racks. So something that I do as I just make music and just like passively, I have a bunch of racks that I just save for myself that I can use later. So if I go into my my folder of just like instrument racks, then I've saved a bunch of them. This is a particularly large folder here. So like that parallel delays thing that I was talking about earlier, that was just a preset that I dragged in. Right? Or things that otherwise probably would take a bit longer to make. I think this one probably took a bit longer because it's taking a while to load. I probably made it with M Sound Factory. Please load. Thank you. Like this. Bit of a ridiculous sound. I probably should turn off the spectral delay here. Yeah, but this sound is a bit more complicated. But because I saved it as a preset, I can just kind of drag it in and use it. So if you get into the habit of going through and just saving sounds as presets, or, like as more complicated sounds as presets, that you can drag them in and use them later instead of having to remake it if you want to use that sound again. It's a really good thing to be able to do, to just have that in your workflow. Another thing that's really helpful is to be able to just record audio with your microphone. So like this, in this track, for example, I guess not really a track, this loop or beat or whatever. These 4 tracks here, these are all just recordings of me banging on things. So like this one, for example, I've got a shaker. I don't think I have it with me right now. I think, oh, well, it's in there. I don't want to get it from my chair though. I've got a, well, maybe it was this. It might have been this. I've got like this shaker thing here, and I was just picking it up and using it and then recording it very quickly. For this thing here, I've got a cowbell. I was just hitting on the cowbell, like banging it, striking it. I was striking the cowbell, just because I have this equipment around me that I can use. And if you don't have a lot of equipment, which most people don't, you can just bang on your desk, which is what I was doing here. Actually, I don't think I was banging on my desk. I think that was banging on my chest, which is really helpful for being able to sort of bang up patterns in this. I think that was me hitting my lap. That sounds like jeans, and I always wear jeans. Yeah, so like these 2 percussion, and you can hear like the bleed from my headphones as well. Like it's just me hitting on my clothes, but it sounds like pretty decent percussion. I guess I should also mention that mouth sounds are really helpful as well. So like, I guess I'll just add something here and record something in. All right, this, yeah. So let's see. Let me try and record in some mouth sounds. I'm really out of time here, so what I usually do is I'll just quantize it to the nearest 16th, like this. And it's going to have a lot of issues because my timing wasn't very good when I recorded that. But that's okay, because you get those sort of like beat variations and shit just automatically generated. And then, you know, you can always do the classic thing of turning that down. And now there you go. There's a percussion layer, and if you really want to, you could mess around with the panning as well. So something that I like to do sometimes is just literally just automate the pan like this, so that it sounds more wide, and then you can just turn it down like this. There you go. Sounds pretty good. Like that took, I don't know how many seconds. You can go and look in the video, but that did not take very long. There you go. That's a complete layer right there. I just recorded mouth sounds. Another thing that I do to save time a lot is I use a preset for OTT that I made. So here, I'm going to actually, give me a sec. Let me open a different project file. All right, so here we are. And actually, I should probably adjust my camera. Let me do that because this is like, I don't know, actually, is this fine? Is this fine? Whatever. All right, whatever. Anyway, here we are in a new project file. It crashed twice when I was trying to open this because it's a pretty big project file. But yes, here, I'll play a little bit of it. It sounds like this. Right. So I wanted to talk about how I use OTT to control loudness, because a lot of the time I want to have very, very like specific and exact control over how loud something is. And for me, at least, it's really difficult to do that if you just use like a normal compressor, or if you're using like gain automation, especially for sounds that are a lot more dynamic to begin with. And the reason I'll use OTT is because anything that you put in it, it just flattens the dynamic range of it. So I made a preset for it that flattens it. So like, okay, I made a preset called OTT3 because OTT2 wasn't good enough. And it sounds like this. It just takes everything and makes it as loud as it could possibly be. And what I'll do is I'll automate the amount dial on here because, you know, obviously if the amount is at 0%, it's going to be doing nothing. And if it's at 100%, it's going to be doing everything. And you know, when you automate the amount, it gives you a really easy way to control volume. So like here is an example of how I'm using that to control the loudness of this like riser thing here. There's a few other instances in this section. Let me see if I can find them. Yeah, all right, so this is one with this sound here, which is just a reversed frozen and flattened like pluck from tension. I'm using it here with this layer, which is again just like basic shapes. And I think mostly in this track it's upwards motion, but it doesn't have to be upwards motion. Like, I'll just pull up another thing on SoundCloud, I guess, since I don't want to open the project file. This track here. Has a lot of upwards and downwards motion, just moving up and then down and up and then down. I was using OTT a lot in that track to control that motion. I'll link the presets for OTT3 in the description if you want to use them. Although, I mean, of course, I suggest you make your own presets that you know what's happening. But if you want it, I'll link it. Right, another thing that's really useful that I'm using a lot in this track is fades for volume control as well. So like, for example, here, or I mean, anywhere, like literally any single audio clip that I'm using probably has a fade on it. Like just to control the contour of it. Because like, I mean, why would you automate the volume? I mean, oh my God, what does that sound? Stop it. I could automate the volume of the track like that, but that's a huge waste of time when you like literally have the thing on the clip itself to do it. So if you, I mean, most people do this, but it felt like worth mentioning. Another really, really useful thing is showing automation in a new lane. So say I wanted to automate the formant on this vocoder here. Sometimes what people do is they'll go into the automation, click the parameter, and then go into this like drop down here and try to find it, which is so stupid. I used to do this. Don't do that. You can right click the parameter and select show automation in new lane here, which will bring the automation down into another lane, which allows you to edit multiple automation lanes simultaneously. So if I want to automate the release of the vocoder as well, that I can just have it in another lane below that, which is supremely helpful, especially in my workflow where I automate a bunch of stuff. Like, here, let me actually unfold all these tracks so you can see the absurd amount of automation that I have in this project. There's a lot of it. And being able to show that automation in a new lane is really, really helpful so that I don't have to switch between with these terrible drop-down menus on the right, especially if you have a lot of plugins on a track. Another thing that's worth mentioning is Shift Tab. I mean, most people know about this, but this is the keyboard shortcut that you can use to switch between the clip view and the device view. And another thing that is kind of like the last thing that I want to mention, because it's not very applicable to most people, because it's annoying to set up, is using macro scripts in Ableton. So yeah, so I've got a script set up so that I can just like create a MIDI clip like this, just automatically, or I can add either one of two plugins, which is either Kirchhoff EQ, which does it like that if I press the tilde key and a button on my mouse. I can also add utility if I press the one key and a button on my mouse at the same time, which is very useful. This project is kind of laggy because there's a lot of tracks. It takes a bit, but that's a really great workflow thing because these two plugins I use constantly, and having to search them up, like, you know, TV Tech, having to search that up in the browser is a lot slower than just having a button on my mouse to do it for me. I mean, yeah, that's basically it. I could rattle on about this, but I feel like I'm rambling now. So this track, by the way, that I'm in the project file for is on an EP that I just released. Well, I released it about a month ago, but you should listen to that if you haven't. It's amazing. Well, it's all right. I like it. You should listen to it. And then, yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff coming out in the future, like the track I played at the beginning of the video, and also some other things that you should keep an eye out for. So, yeah, subscribe to the channel, follow me on all the stupid platforms. If you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Discord. My server is down below in the description if you want to join that and have a chat. So, yeah, thanks for watching.